So let me ask you a question. What's your default state? What is the state that you normally exist in? What are your automatic things that happen to you? Just like your computer has defaults set up, you try to open the internet and it'll open up Internet Explorer when it's new and you're like, oh no, let me use that to download a new browser, get a new default. You've got defaults too, in the way that you think, in the way that you feel, and in the way that you react. When you get cut off on the road, you probably, if you're like me, have a default reaction of, oh, you idiot, what are you doing? But you can change your defaults. You can change your automatic reactions from negative ones to positive ones. And today, we're kind of going to be talking a little bit about your default state and how to fix that, how to change that, how to make it something better. Because I want my default state to be peaceful. Normal, everyday state. And the things that I'm going to teach you today that I've practiced have helped me to get to that. Now, I am far from perfect, and just yesterday I got angry on the road. But in general, my normal, everyday feeling experience is just like feeling pretty good, feeling kind of peaceful, feeling kind of nice. It didn't used to be that way. When I was younger, melancholy was my default state. Low energy, feeling down. That was my default. What does the default state have to do with you connecting to God? Why am I talking about this? Well, remember last video was all about stilling the mind, learning how to calm things down and get the brain ready to connect with God. Today is about tuning the heart. There's something that needs to be done there too. And when you can still your mind and tune your heart, you are in a state of readiness to connect with God. Now, what would it be like if you were always living in that state where you were ready in a moment to just tune in? That'd be pretty cool. That's what we're going to be working on today. Now, I've given step 1 as stilling the mind, right? But step 2, tuning the heart, they could be flipped. Honestly, it doesn't matter which you do first. You may have more luck with one method than another one. So do what works for you, do what works for your personality. There are some days I can sit down and I can still my mind and then work on tuning my heart. But sometimes my brain is such a mess and I feel like trying to control it and calm it down is not going to happen. So if I start with tuning my heart, working more on the emotions instead of the thoughts kind of get in line. If you calm down what you're feeling, your brain kind of calms itself down too. So you have these two approaches. You can do a top-down approach, using your thoughts to calm everything, or you can use a bottom-up, calming your emotions, and then it takes care of your brain. So you've probably noticed that so far, video 1 was all about just clearing the gunk away, clearing away all your baggage from the past, so you wouldn't have anything blocking your ability to connect with God that way. And video 2 was all about how revelation works in the first place, just kind of going over the anatomy and the process. Video 3 was about stilling the mind. And now we're on video 4. We're 4 videos in on tuning the heart, and we haven't even talked about like how you start to pray, how you start to initiate that contact. It's because there's a lot of things that need to happen first. There's a lot of prerequisites that need to happen. Prayer is kind of a complex process, and we're trying to make it simple by taking these chunks one by one and breaking them down and giving you little action steps. I use this list myself. I have it on my wall, still the mind, tune the heart. I look at it daily to remind me what works. You've got to get yourself ready to connect with God. So what we're talking about here is getting your physiological state to one that will connect with God. You have a physiological state that helps you to hear messages from God. And there are many physiological states. You can be angry, you can be running for your life, or you can be peacefully sitting. There's a lot of different things that you can do. And today we're going to go over how you can tune into the right one. Now you may have noticed that getting into the right state to connect, that could take some time. Sometimes it can be 20 minutes. But what if you could cut that down to like 2 minutes? How would that be? You can do that, but it's all a process of getting yourself wired for it in your brain. Remember last time I talked about cabbies in London, how when you would look at their hippocampus, it was thick with connections. They had all the maps loaded in there and they knew the city backwards and forwards. Violinists, their hand that they used on the fretboard, super thick connections in the brain. And if they cut that part out of their brain and wired it into yours, if that was possible, you'd be able to play the violin too. So what we're doing here with all this practice of stilling the mind and tuning the heart, I'm trying to teach your brain and get you to have habits where you can just automatically connect, where you can instantly get yourself into a state where you're ready to hear God, where you're ready to feel peace, to feel joy. Cool, right? So getting into that physiological state to connect with God is going to require doing some stuff with your brain. Scientists have researched people as they prayed, and they found that there are some specific changes that take place. They put the EEG machine on people's heads, and they found that when they prayed, they went from their normal level of like very active thought, very high frequency, intense, they call them beta waves, to a lower, calmer alpha wave state, where everything's just a little bit slower. It's the kind of state that your brain's in when you're daydreaming. It's the thing that happens right before you're falling asleep. Getting into that state takes some intentional practice, which is why I gave you the mindfulness meditation last time. It's a really powerful tool, and you can use that to calm yourself down. But today is more focused on the emotions. Because just like your brain can be running on different frequencies, your heart has different frequencies, you could say. You could consider your emotions like frequencies. So, despair is a frequency. Peace is a frequency. And it can be hard to really connect and feel all of God's love when we're on the wrong frequency. If we're tuned in to depression, but we're trying to get love and light, there's a conflict there. We've got to learn how to tune our hearts in. Because remember, prayer is not just talking to God. It's not a one-way communication. It's not even just a two-way communication. You're not just communicating, exchanging information. You're trying to get yourself into a different frame, into a different state in your body, but also in your spirit. You're trying to like connect to the energy of heaven. It's just like the pickle in the brine. You're a cucumber. And when you pray, you're soaking yourself in the brine, and it starts to transform and change you. You want to have that high level of contact with the divine, not just sending letters back and forth. And that's going to require you learning how to tune in your heart. One of my favorite book series ever is the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And they're epic fantasy books, and they have a people in the book called the Parshendi. And one of the interesting things about the Parshendi is they all have these rhythms just kind of like built into them. It's almost as if they're hearing music in the background. And everyone in the whole species is hearing the same patterns, the same rhythms, and they're all happening at the exact same moment. So when they go to war, they all fall into the war cadence. And so their movements are synced up. It's like they're dancing almost. Their words, as they deliver their speech, it can come out in the cadence and rhythm of that song in the back of their head. So it's just like we can use intonation to express emotions. We can say words that are the same in very different ways. Like I could say, I love you. Or I could say, I love you. There's a big difference between those, right? So falling into these rhythms that everybody hears and knows with Parshendi can convey a lot of information. You could be saying reproachful words, like giving someone some correction, but saying it to the cadence of love. And the person would get the message, oh, okay, they're not angry with me. I love that analogy because we all have that music playing in the back of our head somewhere. We can tune in to any different one of those emotional rhythms that we have. There's a lot of emotions, and at any moment we can choose to shift. Now, that takes some work, obviously, but it is something that's possible. Did you know that? I know that a lot of times we feel like we are victims of our emotions, that they happen and we just have to deal with them, and we have to wait until they pass or distract ourselves until they pass. But you can summon a state of peace. You can summon a state of joy. You can learn to get really good at that. Because remember, we are spirits given these bodies to learn how to control. And it's going to take a couple decades before we're really good at it. But it is something within our purview. You know, we really are like a radio. I like that analogy too, because you can have a radio sitting in your car, turned off, and in that moment, you have thousands of radio waves, billions, like all these radio waves passing through the radio, all different frequencies. You've got the frequency of 88.1 all the way up to 107.9, but if the radio's off, it's not getting any of that. All of it's passing through it every moment, but it has to be tuned into the right frequency and be on in order for you to hear it. So with radios, they can be off, they can be on, they can be tuned, and when they're on, they can be tuned into the right frequency or the wrong frequency. You can also have the volume turned way down. And we're just like that. We have emotional circuits inside. We have spiritual circuits inside. And we can be off. It's possible to turn off your emotions, to turn off your spiritual receiver. The messages are still there. God's always broadcasting, but we're not picking them up. Satan wants us to shut off. And one of the things that shuts us off very quickly is trauma, pain, and abuse. And you may have noticed this world is full of that. We experience those things and they hurt and they're hard and we don't want to deal with them. And so it's easy to try to numb ourselves and just shut that down completely. So he gets us into addictive habits. He gets us into addictive substances. And it doesn't matter which it is. He tries to get us addicted so that we are disconnected from our emotions. Now I need you to know, if you're numbing, if you're turning your emotional circuits off, that can be fixed. You can heal. If you have trauma in your past, get a therapist. It is possible to heal. Your pain is not something you're supposed to carry around for the rest of your life. It's something to be learned from and moved through. There's a lesson in that for you. And it's scary to face those feelings. It's scary to face nightmares and flashbacks. But it's possible to let those go so they have no influence over you anymore. I've helped clients do that in therapy. And any therapist trained to do trauma work can help you. So if you fall into that category, please take some action there. I think one of our biggest purposes on this earth is to learn how to deal with our emotions. There's all kinds, and there's some good and some bad, and we don't like experiencing discomfort and pain, so it's really easy to shut stuff off. But we need to learn to experience it all, to let everything flow through us, to be managers of our emotions, and to let things go where they need to, put them in the appropriate areas. We're not supposed to hold on to emotions. We're not batteries. We're like a river. We're supposed to let them flow right through, or a channel, or a pipe. Now, it's also possible to have your emotions just be lower. You can turn the volume knob down. And I lived in that state for many years. I was pretty numbed. I grew up on the personality type that felt very unsafe in the world, didn't feel capable in the world, and because of that fear, I retreated to my brain. I was very cognitive. Everything was in my head, and I felt like I was a robot, or I had a robot suit below my neck just to carry around my brain in a jar. There wasn't a lot going on below my chin. And that can be something that we do when we feel afraid. So I had those receivers inside and they were picking up the messages from God, but I couldn't really feel them. The speaker wasn't connected like it needed to be. And it took me some work to turn those on, and it took me facing fears and learning about me on the inside of me. Basically, I had a wall that was blocking me from emotional experiences and from spiritual experiences. And this wall that was in me would block the spirit from coming through. Even though big experiences, it was like they would rush over the wall and I'd still get hit. But the smaller ones, they were blocked. And that wall was a part of me. That wall was a defensive strategy that I learned when I was very young to protect myself. I felt afraid of a lot of things. And it's a natural, instinctive thing I did. So I didn't consciously even know it was there. I didn't have control over it. And what I'm going to teach you today was instrumental in me getting rid of that wall. After I practiced for a while, I first became aware of the wall. It was a weird experience to like feel this thing inside of me that was blocking me from God. To, for the first time, be like, oh my goodness, there's something here. And as I continued in this practice, the wall would be raised up and I could get that flow of light. And I was like, oh, this is wonderful. And when I'd stop, it'd slam back down. And I was stuck again. And it's frustrating, but every time I went through this process, I could get the wall to move. And after a couple months, I learned to consciously control it. I could will it to go up just by choosing. And that took some concentration. And then it would come back down if I wasn't paying attention. But after a while, the wall was gone. And as long as I am doing what I need to do, keeping my good daily habits going, the wall's not there. So it's nice. But I blamed God during that experience. I thought, why isn't he speaking loud enough for me to hear? Why can't I feel anything more than I do? It's easy to blame. And I think it's one of the toughest lessons of living in mortality. We're here to struggle and experience opposition. And there's not a manual on all of this. There's so many things that can get in the way that we're not aware of. And I think part of the test, that's part of it, is we're going to experience things where we won't know what to do. And the test is, are we going to close off? Are we going to blame and stop moving? Or are we going to push forward? The scriptures say, seek and ye shall find. And that is true. And I also guarantee that it will not happen nearly as quickly as you want. But if you are seeking and moving forward and trying and exploring, you will find answers after a time. And it's worth it. So I had to take responsibility for myself. Like, okay, I can't hear God as well as I want. Don't know why. I'm going to try. And so I persisted. And I am so grateful that I did. Because what I get to experience now is so much better than it was when I was a kid. It's so nice to know that I can connect with Heavenly Father whenever I want. And there are no more big walls blocking him. I can learn his will and be guided by the Spirit. And I would not trade that for anything. So you may have your own wall. Maybe you need to turn the volume up on your radio transmitter a little bit. Or get onto the right channel. Get away from bitterness and resentment. Get onto peace and forgiveness so that you can hear him better. If you do have one of those walls, you can fix it. It's kind of like having a muscle that's tight and you don't know that it's tight. I was giving my dad a massage one day and I was doing an occipital release where you're pushing on their occipitals and they're laying down. And so their neck is resting on your fingers. And their head, as the muscles relax, is supposed to drop down to the floor. And he was just holding straight. And I was like, Dad, relax. He's like, I am. And I'm like, no, your head should be like moving down towards the floor. And he's like, oh. And there was a pause where he's like, trying to feel where those muscles were. And finally, his head started to relax. We can be holding things and we don't even know we're holding them. And this is going to, oh my gosh, this is going to help you so much. Really, what we're going to do today is like learning to map the territory of your own soul. You're exploring on the inside and learning things about yourself that you had no idea were there. I love what I'm going to show you today. So what are we doing today? Well, it's similar to what we did last time. This time I'm going to give you a guided meditation that isn't so much about the mindfulness in the moment and just being aware, but it's creating what you could call a safe place. That's what people joke about when they talk about go to your happy place. Today you're actually going to make one of those. And setting up that safe place, it's kind of magical what happens. I'll explain after we go through it a little bit of what's happening, but this will set up a space where you can feel what it's like to be safe, to be okay, to be in a state of open reception so that you can learn to tune into God better. The electronics are turned off, and if you have things to do, write a list of them so that you don't forget. I want you to be able to be 100% focused on this experience. because it will pay dividends. This is what I told you about in a previous video. The first time I tried a visualization meditation, it was like that bucket of peace was dumped on me and it just flowed through my soul. It was incredible. It got the wall out of the way. And I didn't have anything to do with that. It just automatically happens as you go through it. So make sure you're in a place where you're ready, where you can have this experience. So as we begin, I'm going to black out the video. I'm going to go dark there so that you can just listen with your eyes closed.
Begin by taking some deep breaths with your belly, completely expanding your stomach out, as if there's a balloon filling up with air as you inhale. Continue to take these deep breaths in and out. As you continue to breathe, focus your awareness on the present moment and choose an anchor point. This could be the sensation of breathing in your chest, or what it's like to feel the air flow in and out through your nostrils. Or it could be the sensation of whatever you're sitting or laying on. Choose whichever you desire, and let this be the point of awareness that you continually return your mind to every time your thoughts begin to wander. The point of focusing on your breath, or what's under you, is not to be focused on it, but to have an anchor to keep you in the present moment. As you continue to breathe and focus on the present, you will find that thoughts, feelings, and images arise within you. Each time they do, acknowledge them, thank them for what they bring, and then gently return your attention to the present. It is natural for your mind to wander, but try to remain in the present. Each time your thoughts leave the present, gently bring them back. You don't need to be frustrated about this. Simply become aware and shift your focus. Continue to breathe and simply exist in the moment. As you notice your mind wandering, return to the present. As you breathe and focus on the present moment, you will notice that thoughts arise. Some of these thoughts will be pleasant. Avoid the temptation to follow them. Simply acknowledge that they exist. Thank them for being there, and then give them permission to pass on. You will also find that unpleasant thoughts, stresses, worries and anxiety, sad thoughts and feelings will arise. This is okay. Just as with the pleasant thoughts, acknowledge them, thank them for being there, and allow them to pass through. You are like a great stone in a river. Water flows all around you and over you, but it does not move you. You are firm, steady, and anchored in your place, and thoughts and feelings flow all over and around you, but they do not move you. You are not your thoughts and feelings. You are not the water. You are the rock. You are the awareness that observes. As you breathe and exist in the moment, your thoughts and feelings will continue to arise, and each time, acknowledge them. But you don't need to feel any way about them. They're not something to feel annoyance at or pleasure at. They merely are. They exist free of judgment. Let them be simply what they are, and then allow them to pass. Continue to take deep breaths and focus your awareness on the present moment. As you continue to breathe deeply and focus your mind on the present, you will see a sense of detachment within yourself. Your thoughts and feelings arise, images arise, and they all pass. They do not control you. As the thoughts arise, and you give them permission to pass, notice what is left when they are gone. The stillness, where only you exist, breathing in this very moment. As often as your thoughts wander, gently return them. As your thoughts arise, allow them to exist and to pass over you and through you. After they have passed, look inward and observe where they have gone, and you will see that there is nothing. Only you remain, breathing and existing in this moment. It is as if you are an observer on a high tower, far above the clouds. Your thoughts and your feelings are like clouds that slowly drift beneath you. They do not move you. You have a sense of detachment. You are removed from them. You see them. You allow them to exist. But they do not affect you. Nothing can take your mind away from being anchored in this present moment. As you continue to breathe and keep your awareness in the now, you will notice a stillness rest upon you. You will notice a sense of calm and quiet. All the chatter in your head dies down. And you begin to enjoy the peace of merely existing. Your mind is calm and placid, like a pond without a ripple. As soon as you're ready, open your eyes and take your new awareness into the world with you. Go throughout your day with the same focus and mindful awareness of your existence and the existence of others. This is a state of being you have the ability to enjoy at any time. Your ability to quiet your mind will grow.
So how was that? I'm hoping you had a similar experience to what I had the first time. But if not, that's okay. You can get there. This is what I did for, solid year. I was not consistent in this at all. But for about a year, I really wanted to make a change in my spiritual life. And so I would start with meditation, this visualization, before I did prayer, because it got my wall to budge. And it helped me to feel the peace and tune into God. So this was something I dedicated myself to as best as I could at that age. And there were some days I got a little crazy about this. Sometimes it would take me 20 minutes of meditation before I could tune in and put all the thoughts away and the day's concerns. It takes an act of will to say, I am going to meditate now. And that's hard to get to sometimes. And some days, man, I would get up early. So some days I'd try to meditate for an hour before I connected. And again, this was not every day, and it was not an hour a day, certainly. But I would try to get in that zone first. And it was so helpful for me to be able to feel the Spirit and receive revelation. So let me explain what happened here. In The Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi tells Daniel to go wax all of those cars. And he's very specific. He's like, wax on, wax off. And Daniel's annoyed because he thinks he's being used and abused and just waxing cars. So when he gets frustrated, Mr. Miyagi, says, wax on, wax off, and he throws a punch, and Daniel blocks it. And he's like, oh my gosh, you were having me practice that whole time and I didn't know it. That's what this guided meditation is. When you visualize yourself in this place, when you really try to create that in your mind and create a sense of safety, your walls drop. Your protections drop, your defensive mechanisms go away, and you're in a state of clarity and peace to connect with God. And when you stop, those often come back like they did for me. But by doing this, you're training your brain to get to a state of safety. So it took me, I think it was about 9 months before I felt the wall. Maybe 6. 6 months I felt the wall. At 9 months I could budget with will. And at a year I could consciously remove it, and it was mostly gone, or I could keep it away. So it took a little practice, but what was happening inside me is, I think of it like this. In getting to my safe place, it was like a cabin in the woods somewhere. And as I would start my meditation, it's like I'm plopped into the forest, and I'm like, okay, where's the cabin? And I would have to follow this path to try to find it. And it would take me a while to walk the path, 10, 15 minutes sometimes. But finally I would get to the cabin. And after I did that for months and months and months, it was like I'm plopped in the forest. I'm like, okay, there's my path. Got to follow it all the way to the cabin. I looked over, and the cabin was like 50 feet through the woods. So instead of this long, drawn-out process, it was like a minute or two, just a short little walk over to that place of peace. I was establishing connections in my brain. I was growing new pathways between wherever I'm at now and that physiological state of peace and safety. And now that I've been practicing this for years, it's almost instant. When I really have summoned all my will and I want it, I can instantly slip in to that state of peace and calm. And let me tell you, that is a wonderful skill to have, especially when life's getting crazy. Now, please don't despair and think, oh, geez, I got to meditate for a year. No, you don't. That was my path. Yours may be different, but I will tell you, every time I started with a meditation and I really got to that place, my prayer was good. You can have really good prayers of connection right now. Maybe it will take you 20 minutes of meditating first, but it's worth it, right? And this meditation, again, worth it because it's the process of learning to tune your heart and to create those pathways in your brain that allow you to go to that state quickly. But do you want a shortcut? Would it be nice if you could get there way faster? There is one. Let me tell you what it is. Music. Heavenly Father told me to listen to music, and I didn't pay attention. I was like, yeah, okay, sometimes. Sometimes I'd be like, okay, a little music. I feel so stupid that I didn't take him seriously. Here he is, the omniscient God of the universe, and I was like, that sounds dumb. Oh my gosh. If I could go back in time, I could save myself months of struggle. I hope you will be wiser than I was. So why music? Because it is powerful. Music is the language of emotion. Music instantly has an ability to touch your emotions and shift your physiological state. That's why humans like it. That's why we love dance as a people. The music gets into us and it changes how we feel, and it can put us into different states. And if you doubt the power of music, geez, just look at how Satan uses it. Look at the top 40. Look at the messages in the music. I mean, they can drive words into your soul when they're set to music. It works. There was a quote from the Strength of the Youth pamphlet put out by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when I was a teenager that said, music can, by its tempo, beat, intensity, and lyrics, dull your spiritual sensitivity. Tempo, beat, intensity, and lyrics. Interesting. It's not just the words, it's how fast it's playing, how loud it's playing, and the rhythms in it. You know this. This is why some songs get stuck in your head. Pop songs are engineered to appeal to the mind and get caught in your head. And there's some where you hear it once and you're like, I have heard this song a million times. Because you have. They're using the same old formulas. They know how to manipulate people. They know how to keep people in a trance-like state. Music is so powerful for influencing your state. So use it for good. Find music that's going to help you get into that state. I have some favorites. I've made a playlist for myself, carefully curated over the years. The songs on there so quickly impart a sense of peace to my soul. It tunes me in. It tunes me into the frequency of peace. And there's a lot of variation out there. Even in religious music, oh my gosh, worlds of difference in religious music. There's, to me, there can be Christian music, and then there can be sacred music, and those are two very different things. A lot of the Christian rock, it's still using rock rhythms, and it may focus your mind on God, but it doesn't tune your soul to the frequency where you get revelation. There is a difference there. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we have a decent amount of music too. But there's a wide variety. There's some stuff that Mormon Tabernacle Choir can sing, and I'm like, And there's some stuff that tunes me right in instantly. When you put on the right music that's tuned to the right frequency of the heart, you can get there quickly. And then connection with God is so much easier. And if you want help in your meditation, definitely use music there too. It helps to get your mind, anything to get your mind in that state. Remember, we're just trying to train your brain and grow new pathways. So music can tune you in very quickly. In the next homework video, I'm going to share with you some of my favorite songs that help me to get there very quickly. And you'll be finding some of your own.